engaging with institutions involved in policy making, academic activities, and practice related to the urban sector. As you know, this was formally inaugurated by Sri M.B. Rajesh, Honorable Minister for LSGD and Excise, Government of Kerala, on May 17th, 2023. This novel initiative by KILA ultimately aims to stimulate debates on crucial topics that are instrumental in reshaping Kerala's urban landscape, consequently informing the recently announced state urban policy formulation by Kerala government. The theme of today's session, Center-State Financial Relations, Implications for Urban Local Governments, great significance, particularly at this point in time when the state government is numerous significant financial challenges exacerbated by factors such as reduced tax devolution and inadequate revenue deficit grants. The situation is further compounded by the exigencies of natural calamities and COVID-19 pandemic, necessitating substantial spending on non-revenue expenditure. And today's session of the dialogue series thus tries to understand the center-state financial relations in this context, and also the various ways to facilitate smooth operation of any fiscal system. Before we proceed to the main session, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to the Honorable Minister Sri M.B. Rajesh, Secretaries and senior officials from LSGD Kerala, mayors, corporation secretaries, chairpersons, and a very warm welcome to the directors and representatives of national academic institutions and global policy partners. And a special welcome to Dr. Joy Ellerman, Director General KILA, whose vision and leadership have been instrumental in shaping KILA's noble initiatives towards sustainable urban development. Now I request Joy sir to deliver the opening remarks and formally begin today's session.
Good evening to all. First of all, thank you very much for joining this 9th edition of the Kerala Urban Dialogue series. We had 8 of them earlier. Each of them had actually given us a lot of insights into how Kerala should move ahead, especially in the urbanizing context. I would say urbanizing context. And as all of you know, Kerala is a fast urbanizing state. And naturally, we are all concerned about how we move forward in policy making as well as in actions thereon. And all these 8 programs gave us a lot of inputs. And this is the 9th one. But this has more significance, mainly because now we have formed, the government of Kerala has formed the State Urban Commission, which is going to draft the state's urban policy. And the commission has around 1 year time. And during that duration, they will have a lot of consultations and studies and all, and then we move into the final draft urban policy. But we had already started this dialogue series so as to contribute to this urban policy formulation. And now that this urban commission has become a reality, we find that our venture in this urban dialogue series is really worth for the, sometimes what happens is that we all do all these things, but then nothing happens kind of thing. But here, the difference is that there is going to be some definite outputs and outcomes with all this dialogue series. And we had excellent partners in this. This time, we are organizing it directly under the leadership of KILA's Urban Center itself, under the leadership of Dr. Ajit Kaliyat. And as you have already seen, we have Professor Amitabh Kundu, who can actually talk about anything on these aspects, especially if I take, because not simply the urban context in a national level, but also the externalities related to urbanization. Also, he can actually talk. He's not just even unlike many others urban experts. I would say he has a little more larger views on all these things. That means a lot of interconnections and all can be brought in. So that we are looking forward to, sir. And then it's all friends around. I have Professor V.N. Alok. I mean, he's a long time friend, personally, as well as for Kila again. So, Professor V.N. Alok. So, it's again, welcome back to Kila, I would say. And then again, we have our friend, Professor Lekha Chakravarti also. She has also been a good friend of Kerala and Kila, and she has been from here. Actually, he has been from here. So, Dr. Lekha is here. And Dr. Lekha also has a lot of friends around. That's also an important thing. So they will also be listening to you, Professor Lekha. And then we have Dr. Ravi Raman. He's part and parcel of our team, I would say. He has been one of the guiding personalities for us in Kila, especially when we actually started talking about strengthening our Center for Urban Governance. It was Dr. Ravi Raman. I don't know whether he has forgotten or not, he remembers or not. It is actually around 4 or 5 years back that he actually said the need for strengthening our Center for Urban Governance. And he gave us a lot of suggestions. And that is how we are actually revamped our Urban Governance Center. So I was also reminding you about that. So he's also with us, who has been he has been the planning for the second term, planning board in the second term. And naturally, he will also give us a lot of inputs and insights into this. I do not want to talk much on all these things. Because it has to be a dialogue series where all these experts have to actually give us a lot of inputs. And then there is also the opportunity for us to react and respond and ask questions and comment and all. And so thank you all for being with us. All the participants also. Thank you all for this. Thank you. Over to Irene.
For setting context. Now, yes, sir. Extremely honored to welcome Dr. K. Ravi Raman, a member Kerala State Planning Board, who has kindly accepted the role of chairing today's session. Ravi Raman sir was formerly a senior fellow at the National Memorial Museum and Library in New Delhi. He was also a director, Institute of Applied Manpower Research, and a visiting fellow in Oxford and Cambridge, Cambridge and Manchester for varying periods. He's also honorary research fellow in the Dartmouth Institute and affiliated researcher on egalitarianism in Bergen. He works on a range of themes and development, and he's currently in charge of transport, labor welfare, public works, and civil supplies in the State Planning Board. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. Also, thanks to Professor Joy Elaman and Ajit Kalia. I mean, I must say that I must congratulate the organizers first because they have taken up a very serious issue for discussion. And more than that, the timing of the discussion also is important. I mean, now we are compelled to discuss more and more on the center-state relations. And fortunately, we have, internationally acclaimed scholars like Professor Amitabh Kundu, Professor Alok, and Professor Lekha Chakravarti. And also, I'm sure that we have many other scholars online. So I think this is perhaps going to be one of the most productive dialogues organized by Kila. I must say that I am assigned the task of setting the subject or setting the theme. And as you all know, today's theme of the dialogue is center-state relations in the larger context of federalism. And we all know that the notion of federalism is subjected to all kinds of what is called criticisms, and also the center-state relations are in conflict, and we all know that it keeps on increasing. So basically, it's not just that it keeps on increasing. I mean, the conflict takes new forms. As you all know that now it has taken the form of, what should I say, the legal form, where for the first time in the history of federalism in the Indian context, a state has approached to the Supreme Court for resolving the financial conflicts with the central government. So we know that normally we have these two forms of federalism, the coming together of federalism as in the case of the United States, or holding together kind of federalism as in the case of India. But whether it is what is called um, holding together, or particularly in the case of holding together federalism, basically the center and the state, as Ambedkar has rightly pointed out, derive their authorities from the constitution. It is from the constitution that we derive our authorities. But we all know that politically and structurally, more power is vested with the central government. So there is some kind of a unilateral kind of an approach from the central government. There is a kind of supreme control over the states at times. And because of that, states are compelled to compromise some forms of what is called developmental projects. So the autonomous process of development is constrained because of the unilateral approach of the federal government. So the thing is that a situation has come up where we are supposed to revisit the center-state relations in India. So I would say that this is going to be our first task, how best we could revisit the center-state relations in India. And as part of that, we also need to reorient the center-state relations. And in what way that we can reorient the center-state relations, because we find a whole lot of asymmetric forms of power relations between the center and the state. And that's quite clear in the case of devolution of resources from the center to the states. In the case of Kerala, it is so clear that the devolution keeps on declining. And I don't want to go into the details, the empirical details, we all know. And that's one of the reasons why we were compelled to go to the Supreme Court. So what is happening in the case of Kerala is that the central government is not ready to engage with the contemporary problems of the state. First of all, we want to make our point clear that, look, we shouldn't be punished for the performance that we have made. We shouldn't be punished for the progress that we have made. And because of two reasons. One reason is that we want to maintain the progress that we have made, for which we need more resources. And the second reason is that we also want to address creatively the second generation issues. We all know that we have this significant size of elderly population. They won't be able to contribute much. But at the same time, as a welfare state, we can't think of compromising the development of care economy for the elderly. So in every sense, we wanted to communicate, we wanted to say or talk with the central government, saying that, look, we are not ready to compromise the kind of welfare system that has been evolved over the years. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to revisit and reorient the center-state relations in India. And in this context, I'm sure that we will get a whole lot of inputs, particularly from these three scholars, particularly by the keynote speaker, Professor Amitabh Kundu, who is an internationally acclaimed scholar, not only on urban studies, but also on center-state relations, and then Professor Alok, and also from Lekha Chakravarti. So I think we can, I think this is organized. Ajit, should I continue or should I request Irene to take over? Irene?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I can continue, and I hope you will be there throughout the session. Maybe you can join in after the keynote.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ravi, sir, for shedding light on the state of Kerala and its financial distress and the various factors that has contributed to it, and also for stressing the need to reorient center-state financial relations in this context. We are very fortunate to have with us today Professor Dr. Amitabh Kundu, a retired professor, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, as our key speaker to share his insights on fiscal management. Professor Kundu has served as the Dean of the School of Social Sciences, JNU, and he has also been the Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs and a member of the National Statistical Commission, and has chaired the Post-Sachar Evaluation Committee and also the Committee for Estimating Urban Housing Shortage. He was regional advisor on poverty at UNESCWA Beirut and consultant to the Sri Lankan government on population census. He was a director at various institutes in India and is in the editorial board of a large number of national and international journals. He has about 25 books and 200 research articles published in India and abroad to his credit. So it is with great honor that I welcome Professor Kundu on behalf of KILA today to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, sir. Kundu sir, you are on mute.
I'm sorry, I was not audible at all. I must begin by, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
I must thank Dr. Ravi Raman for this excellent context setting, Dr. Elaman for the words of introduction, which sets the stage for discussion. And a small thanks to Professor Ajit Kalia for making me accept this invitation at a short notice. But a big thanks to him for having this excellent group of people, chairperson and the two discussants, which really makes me feel that I should only be a member of the panel. I will set some of the questions which strike me as important. I chose the topic myself, given the heat and the also understanding which is coming up in recent weeks with the, various elements coming up, including Jantar Mantar meeting. I think this is interesting and very important issues. As Dr. Ravi Raman mentioned, we need to rethink, restructure the center-state relationship. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to touch upon the vertical devolution of the resources, as Dr. Ravi Raman also did not mention about that. When you talk about vertical devolution, I mean the sharing between center and the state, and that is also within the jurisdiction of the Finance Commission. And we know that in the 14th Finance Commission, there was a significant increase in the share of the states, although in the 15th, there is a slight decline by 1 percentage points. But detailed calculations show that overall transfer may not have gone up significantly because changes in the nature of the centrally sponsored schemes and the methods of financing them, because they also underwent changes. There are different calculations. Some say that even in per capita terms, the devolution, even after increasing from 32% to 42%, the total transfer to grants in aid and through central sponsored schemes went down marginally. But we know that earlier it was only the income tax and the excise which were under devolution, but subsequently the others have also been brought in. There are ways by which even GST is to be shared. We can discuss that issues. Nonetheless, one important point comes in the vertical devolution of resources is this. Am I audible? Is there some disturbance? Is it all right? As I was mentioning, there are cess and the surcharge amount which has been levied on different items. Some of them have been restructured. But overall, I find no reason to believe that the share of the states have systematically been going down. This has been ups and downs. It had gone up from, let's say, 14% to 20%, and it went down again to 16%. I really don't think there is a trend of decrease in the share of the states over time. But that's an issue if some panelists or the discussants want to bring in. I would like to really take up the challenge that our chairperson, Ravi Raman, has thrown to us. Let's look at the first slide, which is from an eminent personality, the same namesake as Professor Raman, which captures the sentiment of many of the southern states, which is, as noted, seeking the recourse in the Supreme Court. Can we have the first slide, please? Can we make the slides bigger?
Sir, could you please take your slides to the center stage? Because now that is not visible like that.
I'm depending totally on Irene. I've passed it on. I think she is operating it. Is there any problem?
Yeah, there are. Aaron, please take it to the center.
Okay.
Irene, is that my...
You maximize the slides.
Something at my end?
No, sir, I'll just try to enlarge the slides.
No, I'm technologically absolutely illiterate.
I'll stop sharing and I'll try to share this again, sir.
By the way, have I been audible at least?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, you're audible.
Yes.
Sir, is it the
Yeah,
same?
Right.
now
Is it all right? But can we make it bigger? I mean, we are in a not sharing mode, which means the whole central slide should be covering the total screen.
yes.
Or at least there is some space for other participants. Why should the left-hand side be shown?
Sir, I'll just figure
There
this
is a
out.
Power
Yeah.
sharing mode. I mean, I could have done it from my side, but you can just see that the central part becomes readable.
Oh, just a minute, sir. I'll figure this out now.
That's why I gave it to you. And I thought that you would be 10 times more proficient than me.
So this is the maximum that we can, but it's very visible, actually.
Okay. So sorry, let's accept the constraint of the technology, but I've never presented with left side and right side being blocked with other things. Well, let me then. Yes, that's right, madam. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Figured it out now.
there is a perspective of tax collection and sharing, which is voiced by Sumant Raman, commentator. The protesting non-BJP governments point out that for every tax rupee they contribute to the center, Karnataka gets 15 paise back, Kerala gets 25 paise back, Tamil Nadu gets 29 paise. Contrast this with Uttar Pradesh that gets 2.73 rupees per rupee contributed by them. Bihar gets 7 rupees and 6 paise. Well, we are bringing in BJP, non-BJP, perhaps not needed. South-North divide is coming up, and developed and less developed states divide is emerging. For the BJP, this issue has come as a setback, as it was already seen as having little chances of making much headway in the South in the coming election. That's the politics part of it. But nonetheless, let us ask whether this is a fair way of putting the question for fiscal devolution in a federal system. How much do I contribute as an individual, or how much on my district, my city contributes to the taxes? Do I say, yes, keep certain percentage of it, rest is belong to us? That should be really the state which generate the taxes and giving it to the central government as a custodian, and they should return back. That's the kind of a perspective which needs to be debated in the context of fiscal federalism. The other viewpoint which emerges, I was attending a conference, I'm just posing two alternate perspectives. The perspective is that in per capita terms, the northern backward states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, they get 10% more than the average. And the southern states and Maharashtra and Gujarat, some of the northern states gave 20 to 30% less than the average in per capita terms, which is, of course, makes a significant gap. As I said, that the less developed states get 10% more than the average, less developed states, and the developed states, including the states in the south and most of the southern states, is a genuine concern that right from the 12th Finance Commission, the share in the total devolution funds has been decreasing over time. In per capita terms, of course, it's going up, but that is immaterial because inflation factor is there, economy is also growing. But the point is, if the inequality in the per capita income between the less developed states and the more developed states is 1:4, the per capita income of the two most backward states is 25% of Gujarat, Maharashtra. Do you think it would be fair to talk about some kind of an equalization in terms of per capita terms? So these are different perspectives, and I believe that you cannot resolve it without a political consensus. I entirely agree with Dr. Ravi Raman. This is an important, very important issue. What do we expect the 16th Finance Commission to do? Should we say, please, Mr. Panagaria, look at the fact that the states which are contributing significantly to the tax system are not getting enough. Reduce that disparity. Or should we ask the Finance Commission to say, sorry, the development growth rates are very disparate. The levels of economic and social well-being is extremely high. Please try to reduce that and work out a formula. I'm talking about the Finance Commission formula, which is supposed to be relatively independent of the pressure groups of different states, because NDC, National Defense Council, when Planning Commission existed, there are political bargaining. It was thought that the Finance Commission, which is a national level statutory constitutional body, would be able to prepare some kind of an axiomatic framework, certain kind of indicators which need to be debated nationally, but nonetheless, this discussion should be independent of political pressure groups. We should be able to work out the indicators in a manner that once you accept the indicators and the axiomatic framework, the logic of federal functioning of guaranteeing equity as well as efficiency, both are extremely important. I've heard this argument that inequalities are not going down despite Finance Commission's little bit assistance, but at the same time, this is also a matter of serious concern that the efficiency in growth should get penalized. So considering that, if any Finance Commission takes up this job, says, sorry, I will work out a devolution formula, which is different from 14th, 15th, and I would try to increase the share of the southern states or share of some of the developed or middle income states, and we'll see to it that the disproportionate share, let me quote the figure, 43% of the total funds for income distance, economic deprivation, goes to Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Should we ask the Finance Commission that, look, this is extremely unacceptable, that two states should get 43% share, although anybody would say they have a share of 38% in the multidimensional poverty in the country. But nonetheless, the moment any Finance Commission tries to say, sorry, I'm going to change it, trying to make the share of backward states even higher, I'm sure that will be contested severely. On the other hand, if the Finance Commission says, no, all this injustice that have been done over the years, southern state share going down, we are going to correct that. Again, there could be strong resistance. Elena, can we go down 2 slides, just one, and can you go down? Yes, stay at this. I worked out the correlation coefficient between the per capita income and per capita transfer for the general category states. Look at the correlation. Correlation is as high as minus 0.97, which means equity is being addressed. Very strong relationship exists, a negative relationship between per capita income and per capita transfer, which is exactly what the Fiscal Commission has set as one of the major considerations. But the issue is whether efficiency parameters have been addressed and whether this system, now when the correlation went down in the 14th Finance Commission, there were concerns. Large number of scholars from the northern states, including Professor A.K. Singh of Lucknow, raised issues that, look, we are, even you talk about Pranab's Mukherjee's formula, Dadgil formula, they have been concerned that is the Finance Commission trying to do enough in favor of the backward state? But at the same time, it's also being said, is the Finance Commission doing enough to see that there is no complacency, there is no lethargy, there is no there is no encouragement of corruption. There should be no encouragement of profligacy, populism. There should be no protection of inefficiency in many of the states who, being argued, sit very comfortably because they get a high share. Now, as a student of Professor Amartya Sen, I thought I will provoke the minds of the 3 excellent colleagues now in the panel by proposing 1 or 2 ideas. The idea is, I would need to revisit the indicators. I'm going to very brief all the details. If you ask me, I will come out with the numbers. But I would like to follow an axiomatic approach. We forget whether we are going to increase the share of the southern states or increase in share of the backward states. I would like to look at the indicators which have been followed. Have we defined the indicators properly? Have we understood the indicators properly within the federal context? Do we need to modify these indicators to some extent? Particularly, I'm going to focus on the local government because Kerala Urban Dialogue certainly requires us to look at the allocation which is being made by the Finance Commission to the urban local bodies. Are they following a proper approach? So I would therefore, instead of getting into the political debate of BJP versus non-BJP, North versus South, I would like to look at the different indicators and see whether we are promoting efficiency and equity at the same time. Can we go to the next slide, please? No, I think the slide earlier. I think we skipped one before. Yeah, earlier. No. We are going down. Please go up. Yes, please stay here. You see, this is I started just try to understand whether there is fair share of the transfer in the total SDP of different states. So this table gives the share of the transfer to the total state domestic product. And we do find that the share of the northeastern states are very high. So we can say, okay, northeastern states are getting a fair share. We also find that the share of the poorer states, like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, are also very high. Average is 6%. Their figures will be 10%. In case of Arunachal Pradesh, it is 62%. In case of Nagaland, it is 40%. That is the tax devolution from the central state to the total SDP. But obviously, this is not a satisfactory indicator. The figure can be very high because SDP is low. Poorer states, state domestic product is low. So this is certainly not a good starting point if you want to find out whether there has been equity. So we skip that. We go to the next slide. Please go to the next one, which we have already done. Yes. This is giving the share of the different states in the population and the share of different states in the devolution, which includes the devolution from the 15th Finance Commission, covering both the devolution of taxes plus the grants in aid. Now here you do find that the share of Bihar is very high, share of Uttar Pradesh is very high, 17%. I'm talking about the first column and the last column. Last column gives the share. There, why Bihar share is very high? Of course, Bihar's population is very high. So that is not a matter of surprise. Even Maharashtra's share is reasonably high. Population is very high. West Bengal's. But what we should do here in this table is to compare whether the share in the devolution is higher than the share in the population. And that is the case for Bihar. 8.8% is the share in the population, 10% is the share in the total devolution through tax sharing and grants in aid. Uttar Pradesh, 16%, 17%. Maharashtra, 9.5% to 6%. West Bengal, slightly higher. But look at the southern states. All the southern states have their population share much higher than the share in the devolution. Look at Kerala, 2.8% share in the population, 1.9% share in the devolution. Haryana is, of course, slightly less because Haryana is a developed state. Gujarat is slightly less, but all the southern states are reporting, including Andhra Pradesh, that the share in the devolution is less. That means, but if you look at the next slide, that is the special category states, northeastern states. You do find for all these northeastern states, including Assam. Assam is among the northeastern states, they get lesser share, but Himachal Pradesh also has got a higher share in devolution compared to the share in the population. Uttarakhand also, there are also partly special category states. And there's so much of demand for different states to become special category. Bihar wanted, Odisha wanted, and that's why Arun Jaitley mentioned, sorry, no more special category states. But nonetheless, when I was presenting this in Guwahati, I found that not much of concern about the Finance Commission's devolution, because although they said special category states would not be given additional weightage, but the share of these northeastern states have gone up continuously from the 12th Finance Commission to the 15th Finance Commission. And I was just sharing jokingly to the person chairing the meeting in Guwahati, I said, is it because the Guwahati's political character is same as that of Delhi's, and that's why you have no issue? He said, no. In general, there is general acceptance at the national level that these northeastern states are doing two major responsibilities, that is protecting the area. So area gets a weightage, and all the states whose area is even much lower than the eligible, all of them get 2% share in any case, no matter what it is. Their income deprivations are also pretty high, although it is slightly higher, than Assam or even Chhattisgarh, but nonetheless, the income deprivation is also there. And more importantly, you see, ecology and forestry. Arunachal Pradesh is a major responsibility. You are not allowed to make economically commercial use. And you can't say, okay, you take off ecology, I take off development. That would be unfair. The regions which are taking care of ecology and national security by protecting the huge area, I don't think at the national level there is much of an dissent on this, that the northeastern rate should get slightly higher share. And since the share is not very much eating upon the total devolution, you do find that the figures for Meghalaya, you see, share is 0.25, share in the income is 0.76. So certainly it's within range of 0 to 1 percentage point. Come to the next one. Please go to the next one. That gives the per capita figure. I just calculated per capita figure. Last column, this is for all the indicators. By the way, the indicators which have been used by the 15th Finance Commission, can we go back? Just 2 slides more, just for a minute. Yes, just stay here, stay here. You see the weightages which are being given are mentioned at the top. Population gets a share of 15%. Demographic performance is one thing which has been brought in, which is how, because there was a general argument, and in the 14th Finance Commission, they had not used 2011 census population. They had not used 2011 census population. They had used 1971 population, because basic argument was that the states which have succeeded in controlling the population, they should not be penalized. But nonetheless, the dominant thinking is that you cannot slap a Bihari or a UP fellow just because their government has failed in the delivery of medical services. So you cannot penalize the people. And Finance Commission is not an instrument of improving bureaucratic efficiency or reducing corruption. So 15th Finance Commission used 2011 census and much more than that, which many people have not noticed. I will just bring that into your consideration. What is demographic performance? It is TFR, total fertility rate. When I was presenting it, he said, well, if you're talking about demographic performance, why didn't you take the improvement in TFR instead of taking just the TFR in 2011? If you take improvement in TFR, those who teach demography would know that TFR does not go down at a low level. The Gompertz curve tells us that once it has become 1.7 or 1.8, it doesn't go down. So Kerala will be penalized if you take decline in TFR as a factor for demographic performance. So only inverse of TFR is taken, that if your TFR is very high, then you get penalized. You take 1 upon TFR as your weightages. Third is adjusted area. Area is also to be given. Why additional weightage to area? Because, provision of infrastructure. If you have huge land, your pipelines, all lines, road mileage, everything has to be laid down. So in their own wisdom, they have given weightage of 15%. I'm talking about the first row. Please look at that. Forestry and ecology has been given 10% weightage, which is understandable again, because the states are not free to use their forestry resources. Income distance is something which is extremely important. 45% of the weightage is given to income distance. And I would like to touch upon this a little bit when I propose some ideas for you to react. As far as fiscal effort is concerned, fiscal effort is given 2.5% weightage, a very low weightage. Basically, there was a thinking that if Bihar's tax state domestic product ratio, tax GDP ratio is low, it's because of the inefficiency of the system, but you don't penalize the whole population by that, but you give 2.5% weightages. We can perhaps recommend this 16th Finance Commission to make it 5% instead of 2.5%, but that wouldn't make much of a difference, frankly. So, but I would like to tell you something which some of you might have noticed. 15th Finance Commission takes the population of 2011 census. But it doesn't take only once. It takes population of 2011 census 3 times. And see, very high weightage is given to the population figure. How? First is population share. Gets a weightage of 15%, right? Second, demographic performance, which is 1 upon total fertility rate, right? That if the total fertility rate is low, that does not mean Kerala will get a higher amount for demographic performance than UP. They will say Kerala is a small state. Per capita, yes. Per capita allocation under demographic performance should be higher for Kerala, but the total allocation will be 1 upon TFR multiplied by the population of Uttar Pradesh, population of Bihar. So demographic performance, you calculate only a coefficient. 1 upon TFR, and that you multiply with the population. So population figures even here. As far as the area is concerned, population doesn't figure, ecology doesn't figure, income, distance, that is your deficit from the highest income, your state's income, how much distant it is from the highest. That time they took, Goa, but Goa is an extreme case, so they took it from Haryana. And that you find out the income distance. And then you multiply again by the population to find out what should be the actual share. Again, it's very difficult to argue that you should not bring in population. I mean, a friend of mine with whom I was discussing, he said, how do you expect a very small state like, Manipur, Meghalaya, just because they are, let's say, income distances or fiscal efficiency is very high, you can't give it a higher total amount than Uttar Pradesh. The total amount will have to be somehow, you have to bring in the total population. So that is the kind of a justification. Population, I would like to repeat, figures in the 15th Finance Commission's calculation 4 times. One is direct population share. Second, demographic performance multiplied by population of 2011. Third is income distance multiplied by the population of 2011. And fiscal effort, which is tax divided by SDP. That inverse of that, you take that, and then that also gets multiplied. So this is the formula which has been used. And we do find that the Andhra Pradesh, the shares that we have got already, please go down now. Go down to the last where this is the share in devolution. This is per capita. No, not this one. Please go down. When you come to the per capita figure, yes. This is the per capita figure. Bihar gets 10% more than the average, which is about 5,400 rupees. This is the total average transfer by the 15th Finance Commission. Chhattisgarh gets 60% more, but Uttar Pradesh gets 10% more. These are the 2 states, but most of the southern states get 30% less than the average. And that is what you should think about it, that how do you ensure that the sense of, efficiency being penalized, effort at population control, improvement in the health, family planning services not being given due weightage should be addressed. Please come to the next slide. This is the northeastern states where you do find that the per capita transfer Arunachal Pradesh is 15 times. There are political consideration where this has happened. So nobody discusses that. But Manipur also gets 3 times more. Mizoram gets 5 times more. So that is the situation. Please go down. This shows the share of the northeastern states, 12th, 13th, 14th Finance Commission. Look at the last row, which is total, but total special category states, they have no reason to complain, frankly, because their share has gone up from 8% to 9% to 11%. In general, there has not been, as I said, I was talking in Guwahati, where all the representatives from other states were present. Well, every state wants to get a little bit more, but I don't think there is any basic reason for concern, because there is a general understanding in the political ethos of the country that the responsibility of security, national security, and ecology are important. Please go to the next one. This is the graph which shows devolution from the 12th, 13th, and 14th Finance Commission. It shows constant decline in the share of Kerala, in the share of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka. So that is a matter of concern, whereas there's a decline also in case of Maharashtra, Gujarat, some of the developed states. I think Karnataka, there showed slight increase in 1 year, but then again, for example, Karnataka, see, 12th Finance Commission to 14th Finance Commission, there's a slight increase I noticed, but again, it's not much, it is much less than their share. Please go this up to 14th Finance Commission. I constructed a separate table for the 15th one. Please go to the next one. This is showing there is an increase in case of Maharashtra, by the way. Rajasthan, there is an increase. So these are the 2 exceptional cases, Maharashtra and Gujarat. are two developed states, and there has been an increase from the 14th to the 15th Finance Commission. This raises some question marks. Gujarat and Maharashtra, but Bihar, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and Punjab showing some increase. West Bengal is also has slipped from middle category to lower category. Jharkhand, Uttarakhand, Tamil Nadu has got slight improvement from 14 to the 15. But look at the red patches. All the southern states, including Assam and Orissa, are plugged there. Now, my final 5 to 10 minutes, when I'm going to provoke you by giving my suggestions, I would like you to consider them as whether it is feasible. You know, I was told by Professor Amartya Sen, with whom I started doing my PhD work, that if you have two contending parties and tell them, look, I'm going to give little more to A, little more to B, that would not be acceptable. Instead, the amount which is to be shared, you put it in a box, lock and key, and propose the principles and say, is this principle all right? And if those principles seem reasonable, then you say, okay, now you agreed on the principle. I will open up the box and see what is the result about this principle being accepted. And I'm quite sure after people agree to the principles, if finally they see the result and find, oh, my state is going down, I challenge, I go back to that would happen, and that is bound to happen in democracy. But let me do this exercise in the next 2 minutes. Do I have, Mr. Chairperson, another 5 minutes?
Yes, please carry on.
Okay, thank you. Now, go to the next slide, please. So this way I've already covered. Please go to the next one. This is again giving the weightages by different finance commissions. I don't have to compare 12 through 13. You know, a lot of unnecessary discussion will be involved. I discussed the 15th Finance Commission weightages much more significantly. Let's go back to the next one. Now, this is population, how it is included. I'm just giving the indicator. Population of 2011 census divided by total population of all the states, not the union territories. All the states, you find out the share, and whatever is the share, 15%, I think, isn't it, is to be distributed across the states according to this proportion. That is population of the state divided by population of all the states in the country in 2011 census, and that is the devolution. Area, same. Take the area of each state divided by total area of all the states. Third, very dense forest plus moderately dense forest. You add these two. And that gives the forest cover divided by total in the country of very dense forest and moderately dense forest. So similarly, just find out the ratio of dense forest in the state to the total dense forest in the country. So denominator is total figure for the country. That gives you the share under that head, and whatever money is available, that is distributed across the states. Go to the next one. Income distance. You know how income distance is calculated? DI is the income distance of each state from, earlier they said Goa, but Goa is an extreme, case. So Sikkim is the next one. Finally, they decided about Haryana. So the distance of each state from Haryana, that is the income distance that you take. And that divided, this is to be multiplied by the population. This is interesting. I told you, income distance, the distance of each state from Haryana is to be multiplied by the population of each state, and that gives you the total figure. Similar you do for all the states, and the total denominator added up, that gives us the share for each state in the income deprivation. And the last is demographic performance, 1 upon TFR, total fertility rate, again multiplied by the population. Okay. My first submission is, by the way, what about local bodies? I would first talk about that. I cannot believe the 15th Finance Commission especially has been so insensitive to the local bodies. Do you know how they allocate? I mean, I'm being very frank about it since I work on the urban sector. They have given the share to the total, all the states for the local bodies on the basis of total population and area. What about urbanization? You don't recognize urban population in the devolution. You take total population, 90% weightage, 10% weightage given to area, and based on that you distribute. And then once the state number money is decided, then what you do? Then you say 35% or 33% for urban, rest is for rural. This is absolutely ham-handed principle. There has to be some allocation made by the Finance Commission on the basis of the nature of urbanization. Kerala has a much higher urban base. I mean, that should be reflected. You don't take the population only and area and then allocate the total funds. And after you have allocated, then you start dividing it between metropolitan cities and non-metropolitan cities. That is one thing which I think can be easily represented, and I think this should be acceptable. My final submission is, how do you look at income distance? What is income deprivation for any state? I think income distance should be, I'm proposing it, but think about it. At the bottom, you have Bihar, suppose. So income distance of Bihar should be calculated from the average income of all the states above Bihar. Am I making this point clearly? Find out, arrange all the states in a descending order. At the top, you have Haryana. How do we allocate from Goa, Sikkim? There's a separate formula you can somehow allocate. But from Haryana to, let's say, Bihar, for Bihar, the income distance should be calculated from Bihar's income and the average income of all the states above Bihar. For Uttar Pradesh, you leave out Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Uttar Pradesh's income distance should be calculated from Uttar Pradesh and average income above Uttar Pradesh. If you come to, let's say, Madhya Pradesh or come to Haryana, Haryana is at the top. You come to Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh's income distance should be calculated from Andhra Pradesh and all the states above Andhra Pradesh, their average. You find out, because income deprivation really comes from the states which are above you. Is this, I'm not asking at the moment your opinion whether this is right or wrong. We'll discuss in a little while. But do you think this is understandable? What I'm saying, for each state, calculate the income distance from the average of all the states above it. And that is what the weightage should be. I did the calculation. And would you like to know the results? I'm quite sure it's very difficult to now, after the results are given, share of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar comes down to 28% from 43%. Because you are now calculating the share of other states from the average of above that. I have a feeling, if you agree to look at income deprivation in terms of that state vis-a-vis the states above it, this is a reasonable way of accepting it. I do not think we should change the population criteria. We should keep the population of 2021 if possible. We keep that because we cannot penalize the people. But perception of income distance, which gets 45% of weightages, should be done from each state to the states above it, so that the deprivation really gets captured properly, quite independent of what results we get. I personally felt this would be the best way of capturing income distance. Coincidentally, we do find that the inequality in allocation becomes less if you follow this understanding of income distance. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kundu sir, for the wonderful presentation on fiscal devolution across financial commissions and the indicators that decide the same. Now, Dr. Ravi Raman sir, would you like to come in at this point?
No, I think we would request the discussants to make their remarks.
Sure, sir. Now we'll open the session for discussions then. Our first discussant, Professor V.N. Alok, is a professor at the Indian Institute of Public Administration and has been teaching public finance since 1999. He has been a member of the Delhi Finance Commission and contributed to almost all successive union and state financial commissions since 1995 in different capacities. He has led and conducted many research and studies funded by the constitutional bodies, union and state governments in India, multilateral organizations in range of public policy issues. Dr. Alok has written a number of books and articles for reputed journals and economic dailies on spheres of public finance and policy. Now, I would like to request Dr. Alok, sir, to share his insights and respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Kala, for having invited me here, and particularly to Mr. Ajit, Dr. Joy Almond. And thanks, Mr. Ravi Raman, for an opening remark, and Professor Kundu for presentations on Center-State relations. It's very difficult to speak after Professor Kundu with the analysis that he have made it on center-state financial relations. I believe this dialogue is on urban sector. So I was trying to see where urban comes into this while he was making the analysis. But I think he has made some remarks related to municipalities. And I totally agree with him on this, that the recommendations of the 15th Finance Commission with respect to municipalities is something that is an area of concern for most of us, is hardly any increase on the recommendations made by the 14th Finance Commission in this. Professor Kundu has and Sir Ravi Raman has made some remarks about the shabbily treatment given to some states by the successive commissions, and I don't really wanted to comment on that. I know it has gone to the level of Supreme Court, and 16th Finance Commission has just been constituted, headed by Professor Arvind Pangadia, and in one of the interview that he has given to one of the leading newspaper, he said that he will get into these issues, including the issues of cess and surcharges. The cess and surcharges, which was initiated, these issues, after the 10th Finance Commissions, 10th Finance Commissions said the gross revenue be shared with the states, and the union government, while they were making the 80th amendment to the constitutions, they excluded cess and surcharges from the gross revenue and made it a net revenue. Net means that the cost of collection is also outside the divisible pool, and from there onwards, all kinds of problems started. So this is one contentious issues. The second things, I think my co-panelist, she can comment on, I believe she will comment on that it is not just the north-south divide, which many of us are grappled. I just wanted to read it, some lines that Professor Y.V. Reddy has written in his book. When he was making this comment, this book was very close to me, and I opened the chapter, and Professor Y.V. Reddy in his book, Indian Fiscal Federalism, of which Professor Lekha Chakravarti, she was one of the discussant at that point of time, he has written, an impression has gained ground and that the use of the 2011 population numbers will result in north-south divide, and that it has become almost untenable for Tamil Nadu and Kerala to thrive in the Indian Union. Such impressions are far-fetched. It is not only the South Indian states, with the exception of Telangana, which witnessed a decline in their share in population between 1971 and 2011. Such states include Odisha, West Bengal, Punjab, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, and Goa. I unquote. So, issue here is it's not just the north-south divide. It is the formula of which Professor Amitabh Kundu was making a presentation. I think that has to be revisited by the 16th Finance Commission while they will be making the recommendations. Now, coming back to urban sector, and particularly the municipalities, I think this particular dialogue that has been organized by Kela is on municipalities. That was the subtitle says. The municipalities has been created in India through the national constitutions, the 74th Constitutional Amendment that became an act in 1993. Like Indian constitutions, the municipalities have been created in Brazil, in Pakistan, and a couple of other federal countries. Ironically, wherever the municipalities have been created through a national constitutions, its position is not all that good. On the contrary, the municipalities which has been created through an executive order that is there in China is quite powerful, contributing large sums of large shares of revenue to the national kitty. When we created, when we had these constitutions, the Mahatma Gandhi, he had some ideas about decentralizations, but that was all ignored. And the Indian citizens had to wait for about 40 years or so for that constitutional amendment. Now, when we look at municipalities, it has certain sources of revenues. Some they collect from their own sources, like property tax, profession tax, and a couple of non-taxes, that is tax on water and sanitation. Borrowing, some very big municipal corporations like Ahmedabad and others, they've gone to the market and issued bonds. Though borrowing is the power that they get it from the 1914 Act. That was a central act, and each states have incorporated in their conformity act, that is the municipal act. So just about 10%, the numbers may vary, because most municipal corporations, they collect about 40% of their total resource requirement. When you come down to municipal councils and Nagar Panchayat, they just collect about 5 to 10% or so. So some source of revenue of their own, and property tax is a mainstay of the municipal revenues. Now, when we come to property tax, there are certain examples that each municipality can follow, and that reminded me one of the Indore model, where they related to the electricity consumption. So the Indore model, which has been tried out in other municipalities of Madhya Pradesh, I think that Kerala and your commissions, which has been set up, that is Kerala State Urban Commissions, they can have a look at it. There are other revenues that the municipalities can see. One of them is profession tax. And here the role of the union government comes in, because tax on profession, the limit has been set there in the constitutions, is rupees 2,500. Many finance commissions have recommended that this limit be increased to at least 25,000 or so, but no such action has been taken on that recommendations. There are a couple of other things that municipalities can look at it, where the union government roles comes. One of them is very important, that is central government properties, whether the municipalities, do they have a right to tax them or not? So that is another area one can look at it. Borrowing, as I said, is something that has been tried out by many municipal corporations, and Kerala municipalities can have a look at it. The third source of revenues for the municipalities is the centrally sponsored schemes. That again, the role of the union government comes in. A couple of the schemes are very important. Atal missions for rejuvenations and urban transformations, national health missions, national land record modernizations program, national urban livelihood mission, and smart cities. As we can see in this budget, that's the interim budget, the allocations to the ministries of urban, it has increased, and smart cities program, this has gone down. So it has some implications on municipalities' finances. Now, coming to the union finance commissions, which has been talked about. After the 74th constitutional amendment, the subclause, that is subclause C, was inserted in Article 280. Article 280 is related to the union finance commissions. What this subclause says? The subclause says that the union finance commissions has to suggest measures needed to augment the consolidated fund of a state to supplement the resources of the municipalities in the state. And this they have mentioned, it should be on the basis of the State Finance Commission. Now, why this particular subclause was inserted in Article 280, which is related to Union Finance Commission? Because in the 74th Constitutional Amendment, which becomes Part 9A of the Constitution, there were a number of provisions. And in that provision is Article 243Y, it says that in every state there has to be a state finance commission. And state finance commissions will make some recommendations for municipalities. This can be a share from the state revenue. It could be the total revenue, it could be the own revenue, it could be total tax revenue that can be transferred to the municipalities. Some tax handles can also be transferred to municipalities. Grants can also be given to municipalities. So there could be some stress on the state finances. If there is a stress on account of the recommendation of the State Finance Commission, let the Union Finance Commissions make some recommendations so this stress can be addressed. Now, what all has happened since the 10th Finance Commissions, because that was the first which made some recommendations, they have been making all kinds of lump sum grants. Okay, it started from 10 to 11 to 12 and 13th. And 14th is, and then 15th, now the 16th is grappled with this kind of issue. So there was no such formula. There was no such formula, and all successive finance commissions have been making a claim that their assessment is based on some normative principles. How can the finance commissions have a normative principles? We do have the recommendations of the Jakaria Committee. That was long back. That was in 1963. They made some assessment about the pricing of the basic services. whether these services are rendered in the hilly area, coastal area, the plain areas, or the desert areas. Now, in the absence of certain these pricing, how can any finance commissions make any normative assessment? So what they have been doing, they have been transferring some revenue to the states. Let's say the 41%, rest of the revenue goes to the union government. Whatever is the residuary items, whatever is just left, they make some arrangements for municipalities and panchayat. Now, 15th Finance Commission, what they did, they made a very incremental change of the recommendations of the 14th Finance Commissions. If I just give you the figure, let's say 10 finance commissions. 10 finance commissions being 1,000 crores of rupees. 11th finance commissions made 2,000 crores for municipalities. 12th finance commissions, 5,000 crores of rupees. Okay. Now from 2,000 to 5,000 crores, and from 5,000 crores to 23,000 crores by the 13th Finance Commission. That is quite a jump. And from 23,000 crores to 87,000 crores, which means 3 times. Okay. Now from 87,000 crores to about 200. Okay. So this is again 3 times. Now from 200, they have just increased it to 236. I'm sorry, this it's 87 to 121. So this is a very, very marginal increase over the recommendations of the 14th Finance Commission. In addition to that, what they have done, these recommendations are divided into 2 categories. One is the basic grants, and another is the conditional grants. Now, conditions are so stringent that many of the municipalities are not being able to get that kind of money. And these conditionalities, right from the 13th Finance Commissions to 14th Finance Commissions to 15th Finance Commission, keep on changing. Just keep on changing. So there is no single thread. There is no continuity so far the policy is concerned. So this is something that I just wanted to say, that for the 16th Finance Commissions, it is the right of the municipalities to get some money from the union government, because municipalities has been created through a national constitution. That's point number 1. Point number 2, instead of recommending the lump sum grant, okay, each finance commissions can make some share for municipalities in the union divisible pool, the way they have been recommending it to the states. Why I'm saying so? Because the Indian constitutions identified 2 tiers of government right from the beginning. After 1993, you have the 3rd tier of government. But the fiscal architecture is still identify only 2 tiers of government. The 3rd tier is only getting some share or some money from the states or the union government, and these are all ad hoc grants. So that's a point I just wanted to make. This is a second point. And this is happening actually in other federations. The Union Finance Commission, the idea, it has come from Australia. There's a 1933, Western Australia, they threatened to secede. So they created a Commonwealth Grant Commissions. And in that Commonwealth Grant Commissions, the memberships are decided by both the federal government as well as the state government. Later on, even the local government associations, they also have some say in the constitutions of the Commonwealth Grant Commissions. The same thing happens in South Africa for fiscal and financial commissions, whereas in India, it is the North Bloc which decides who all can be a member of the commissions. Even the TOR also they decides. So that's the reason you have seen a very, very longish TOR for the 15th Finance Commission. In Canada, the small municipalities, they are being governed by the federal government and they do get share from them. So there are lots of international examples for municipalities. Lastly, just wanted to mention that the couple of provisions of the 74th constitutional amendment that is need to be implemented. First is the Metropolitan Planning Committee, Article 243ZE, that can be considered by the Kerala State Urban Commissions. Kerala is always the front runner so far as these two constitutional amendments is concerned. I think here also they can take the lead of this. Second is DPC. DPC is of course functional in Kerala, but it can be strengthened further, and that can be recommended by this commissions. So I stop it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking us through some of the innovative fiscal tools and examples for our urban local bodies to follow for managing the current financial distress, leading to better fiscal discipline. Now we'll have our second discussant, Professor Dr. Lekha Chakrabarty, who is a professor at National Institute of Public Finance and Policy and an elected member of the Governing Board of Management, International Institute of Public Finance, Munich. And she is a pioneer economist in institutionalizing gender budgeting in India with Chief Economic Advisor, Ministry of Finance, Government of India in 2004. And she was also a research affiliate at the Levi Economic Institute of Bard College, New York, and her areas of interest are macroeconomics of public finance, fiscal federalism, climate financing, extractive sector economics, financing human development, and gender budgeting. I would like to invite Dr. Lekha to add her response and take the discussion forward from here.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Dr. Joy Ellerman and Dr. Ajit for having me for this wonderful productive evening, the Kerala Urban Dialogues. And I was listening carefully to the backdrop given by, Professor Ravi Raman, Professor Amitabh Kundu, and Professor V.N. Alok. So my job here is just to add what is not spoken already, because they have preempted most of the points I wanted to share with you. So let me talk, there will not be any duplication in the points, but let me highlight certain institutional things which I wanted to highlight. Institution in the sense, what holds our country together is institutions. Now, the debate in the Lutyens Delhi for some time is whether this intergovernmental fiscal transfers needs to be incorporated within the constitution through an amendment so that there won't be any 5 years tenure for finance commissions like 16, 17, 18. Should it be done through a constitutional amendment and make it fixed? This is one thing. Second, or should we be going through a permanent finance commission? Like there won't be like a 5-year tenure short finance commissions, like what has happened in Sri Lanka. We will have a permanent finance commission. But you can understand that when you go to Sri Lanka, that a body, that permanent finance commission, they don't have any clout, they don't have any voice, and that is leading to the regional disparity only in that country. So there is no clout if it is going to be permanent. So now we are going through this ad hoc finance commission every 5 years, constituted by, President of India. And their main function, as Professor Kundu mentioned, look into this vertical asymmetry and come up with a suggestion of magnitude and the determinants or the criteria of devolution. And Professor V.N. Alok has already pointed out, there was a structural shift in the way the intergovernmental fiscal transfer was designed in our country, in the sense, till 10th Finance Commission, the transfer, the devolution happened based on the tax-specific principles. It was not a tax pool. We devolved the center to states the taxes based on the specific taxes. It's not based on a divisible pool. But from 11th Finance Commission onwards, as he pointed out, the problem started. That's the way he put it forward. We pooled it up, all the taxes together, then decide on the quantity or the magnitude of the devolution. And of course, it is like 14th Finance Commission before and after. Like the way a radical revolution has happened, that 42% of the divisible tax pool will be devolved with the states. Now 42 became 41 with Kashmir out. So that was a radical. So I don't know whether they have asked for even 50 to 60% of the divisible pool to be devolved down and settle for 41. If that is the case, the degree of, attacking this divisible pool in the form of cess and surcharges over the period of time, should there be a bargaining by the state governments to even ask for 60% you devolve, please? If this is a trend in which you are taking the divisible pool in the form of cess and surcharges, so what could be that magnitude? Even if we do that, the kind of, the decision that's going to be taken by the center government is, okay, you ask for more unconditional transfers, then we are going to play with the conditional transfers. So after the 14th Finance Commission, there was a beautiful shift that has happened from the conditional intergovernmental fiscal transfers to unconditional fiscal transfers through 42% devolved down. But after that, they wanted to keep the overall fiscal transfer pool constant, and the center government maneuvered the restructuring of the conditional grants. If you ask me whether that's okay, it's not okay, because it's a bloodbath in reducing the kind of intergovernmental fiscal transfers coming to the state governments. But the beautiful shift that has happened is from unconditional transfer to conditional transfers. That transition I do welcome. Now, within this unconditional transfers, our concern is the states which are, as Professor Kuntu rightly pointed out, the states which have controlled the population, the states which are efficient, robust in economic growth, are getting penalized. So what is that 16th Finance Commission approach to this question, that will you be penalizing the states which are efficient? So what is that equity efficiency balance you're going to take when you look at the intergovernmental fiscal transfers formula? And Professor Kuntu has given you that scientific formula with the determinants and the weightage, and he has also proposed an alternative devolution formula and how to handle the variable population. And I do welcome that. But why normalizing the income? Because income criteria is given 45% weightage. That's why the states which are on the robust path of the economic growth are getting penalized when it comes to the interstate shares more than the population. So how to handle that income distance? He proposed an alternative formula and he told that it's thought-provoking. So I was looking into his proposal. So should we be taking that normalization procedures seriously when we handle this income distance criteria? Instead of looking into that question the way it is, should we be taking the denominator maximum minus minimum, like maximum income and the minimum income? That will remain, that denominator will be remaining constant, and the numerator, you can take a deviation of your state's income from the minimum. So it's like the numerator will be the deviation of the state's income from the minimum, and the denominator will be maximum minus minimum. So should that normalization procedure should happen, because Professor V.N. Alok and Professor Amitabh Kuntu understand that what I am proposing, because it's all based on the way Sudhir Anand and Amartya Sen has proposed the normalization procedure when we construct a composite index. That's the same procedure I'm trying to propose, because it was very intriguing the way Professor Kuntu put forward that how can we handle this normalization procedure. So that needs a rethinking, and I support fully the estimates which I'm waiting that he will definitely put forward. And is that leading to the progressivity in the fiscal transfers? If we are looking at that proposed methodology and compare the estimates with the existing one. So that's an important concern. And what to do with the area variable? Should it be the density of population we club together, or the area should be kept separately? The population will be in the absolute amount. So these are the questions regarding the population and area also we need to look into. And Professor V.N. Alok has beautifully given a cross-country picture, the way in which the devolution and the fiscal federalism happens. Of course, Pakistan and India, if you look into the cross-country experiences, these are the only two countries where the intergovernmental fiscal transfer happened through tax devolution. In all other countries, it's grant equalization. So when we look into the other countries' model, of course, as Professor V.N. Alok mentioned, we could get the composition or the structure in which, how it needs to be done. Of course, he mentioned that it is just ad hoc and North Bloc, they come up with this technocratic composition of finance commissions every 5 years. But what's the alternative then? If you look into Pakistan's composition, the politicians, all the finance ministers of the provinces are part of the finance commission, the Union Finance Commission. And in India, it's a technocratic composition, and our awards are conclusive. But in Pakistan, it's highly political, and the awards in the sense, the recommendations they put forward were never conclusive. It was inconclusive. And I do remember that in Benazir Bhutto's time, the Finance Commission's recommendations were conclusive. And if you Google, you can get a stamp with the Finance Commission members and Benazir Bhutto. They put forward a stamp when the Finance Commission's recommendations got conclusive. So that's a way, the composition, the political composition and the technocratic composition of a Finance Commission affects its outcome. So to me, as an institution, the ad hoc or the 5 years, that's good, and the technocrat, that's good. But as Professor V.N. Alok mentioned, it's not like Western Australia, in which we have a clear idea in which this grant equalization commission is constituted. We don't have any. It's ad hoc in the terms of the career theories or the people we select for the Finance Commission, and that definitely affects the devolution outcomes. That's the way the career theories say that the composition, the personal characteristics and the career theories of the Finance Commission chairperson and the members will affect the outcome. So now coming to the question of the criteria. Over the years, the terms of reference of the Finance Commission has been, revised, and we have started incorporating even the climate change as a part of the Finance Commission's, TOR. So that's a way it has moved away from offsetting the fiscal disabilities across jurisdictions. We have started looking into the socioeconomic backwardness and also the climate change concerns. If that is the case, should we be proposing that the criterion which is used in the existing Finance Commission is very restrictive, it's very partial? We need to consider some other criteria as well. Because prima facie, if we look into, there is no discretion. As Professor Kuntu mentioned, that we are not fixing the box first. We are working on a scientific formula first. The selection of the variables and its weightage. Then we will open the box and see whether our state is getting more or less. But in that, exercise, there could be a discretion that can happen. When we open the box and see that if Bihar and Uttar Pradesh is not gaining much, then the political economic questions we need to face, and we need to rework the weightage and the variables. So like that, there could be a feedback mechanism, and there could be an element of discretion that can happen within the scientific formula. But if you ask me if there is a discretion, no, it's based on the scientific formula, but discretion can happen the way we put the weightage and the way we construct the variables. Now, the question of general government, data, the way Professor Alok put forward and the way Professor Amitabh Kuntu put it forward. What is the scope of building a general government data and the scope of doing a general government analysis by incorporating even the third tier? We don't have data. And it's more than me. Hila will understand, Dr. Ajit and his team will understand that we don't have a uniform methodology or the uniform accounting code to capture even the data at the third tier. So that data building needs to happen before we start thinking about the general government, that government finance statistics of IMF. That's the only document in which we get the general government data. So in all finance commissions, when we go for the meetings, the question related to the general government that comes up, but due to the lack of data, we are unable to tackle this general government, finally, what will happen, as Professor Alok told, we are going to, and Professor Kuntu mentioned, that when we talk about the third tier, there is going to be an ad hoc decision related to because that's killing the arbitrariness of the transfer of funds from the state to the local governments. If you have the SFC within the purview of the State Finance Commission, if you're devolving down, there could be no arbitrariness and ad hocism. But other than that, what 15th Finance Commission has done, that is also based on their recommendation. Around 4.3 lakh crore were given to local governments as grants. That's the largest share of the grants assigned to the local body by the Finance Commission. But if you look into the fiscal marksmanship, like how much is located by the 15th Finance Commission and how much the local bodies, the urban local bodies really got, it's only 15%. So there's a question of fiscal marksmanship. There's a question of volatility in the intergovernmental fiscal decisions taken up by the 15th Finance Commission related to the local grants. So there, as Professor Alok mentioned, how we can work out with those criteria to make it more, less volatile. Less volatile we need to look into, but otherwise, if you go by that 15th Finance Commission, of course, that was a major decision to transfer the grants. But if you look into the fiscal marksmanship, allocated was around 4.36 lakhs crore. But how much they got? But then again, what is the explanation? The urban local bodies fail to meet the conditionalities. So the moment we look into this grants as a conditional grants, this is going to happen. And the fiscal marksmanship will be a huge issue when it relates to the conditional grants. So overall, unconditional grants needs to be given importance, and the magnitude of the unconditional grants based on the scientific formula for both state and the local bodies, I do believe that we need to give a more weightage to that and let conditional grants be, insignificant when compared to the unconditional grants. Now, my final point is, related to how we can make that, the climate change criteria or the other new issues as a part of, the Union Finance Commission and even the State Finance Commissions, because we can't do a finance commission without this fiscal transition and energy transition. That's quite crucial, and I want to flag that climate change commitments. And for instance, we know that the fiscal transition and energy transition that's moving together, it's related to the fiscal consolidation, and Finance Commission is getting into the dynamics of fiscal consolidation. They are not stopping at the level of designing the intergovernmental fiscal transfers. Why they are getting into the fiscal rules, why they are getting into the principles of fiscal consolidation. And over the few finance commissions, if we look into, they got into the fiscal rules and they came up with the estimates of the fiscal risk, that 4 criteria. Fiscal risk, they started assessing and asking the states to give, the estimates on board relate to 0 revenue deficit, relate to 3% fiscal deficit, and now with the energy transition, they have gone up to 3.5 with power sector reforms. They ask us to keep the interest payments to the revenue receipts ratio below 15% and the public debt to GDP at 20% and the center government at 40%. So they are getting into the debt deficit dynamics as well. So when we articulate, or when we do the bargaining models, the Finance Commission means it's not only now in India, which is articulating the intergovernmental fiscal transfers, its magnitude, its devolution, but also they are getting into the debt deficit dynamics. And I stop here, and I will come to more discussion later. And of course, related to the urban finances, Professor V.N. Alok has, mentioned about the details regarding to the congruence principle. This mobile tax, it will be at the 3rd tier. And he mentioned about even the flypapers effect, like Professor Kundu also mentioned about the flypapers effect, that unless we put a criteria on the revenue effort or the tax effort within the intergovernmental fiscal transfers formula, then the bureaucrats will have the tendency to wait for the intergovernmental fiscal transfers to arrive for their local level expenditure decisions. So yeah, I'll stop here and look forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the very insightful presentation and sharing your ideas on intergovernmental fiscal transfer. So now I would like to invite Chair Dr. Ravi Raman, sir, to continue the discussion and add his responses.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, it's excellent presentations. I mean, the keynote speaker, exhaustively dealt with the question of what is called the devolution criteria, and also he has proposed an alternate formula in terms of income distance criteria. I would say that I wouldn't make a claim that I have understood that in particular, but of course, as Lekha has rightly pointed out, we'll have to look at this in detail. And apart from that, I think I will have to pick up one or two points from what is called Professor Alok and Lekha, and raise this as a point of clarification from Professor Amitabh Kundu. The point is this: as far as I am concerned at the moment, we should be asking the question how best we could raise what is called the share of the divisible pool. And in that context, of course, I would derive the insights already raised by Professor Alok and also to a certain extent by Lekha, that if we assume that the 16th Finance Commission considering and recommending the union government to include the cess and surcharges to be included in the divisible pool, with or without the condition that it would only be used for the purpose of which it was collected for, I would say that that would be very, very helpful for some of the states like Kerala. Kerala would obviously get an increased share. And the 16th Finance Commission in that context should consider increasing the share of the divisible pool, preferably close to or more than 50% of the gross tax revenue, on the ground that the state carries out 2/3 of the public expenditure in the country. I'm not sure why we are so silent on that particular issue. State carries out 2/3 of the public expenditure at a particular stage in history when the GST has ruled out any further taxing capacity of the state. So we need to bring in the GST also in that context. That is the point number one I thought I would raise. The second point, of course, when you talk about the what is called the demographic criteria, I'm not sure how far we can afford to forget the nature of the demographic change, not the size alone, the nature of the demographic change. Because in a state like Kerala, you find a decline in the labor force because of the increasing elderly population. So what does it mean? It means that it deserves more support from the central government. As simple as that. You need to find out a new sort of a mechanism for meeting or addressing the challenges of the elderly population. Because this is the outcome of the performance that we have realized so far. So in that context also, I think, coming back to Lekha's point on ecology, yeah, again, it is true that if you look at the forest cover, Kerala may gain, but how about the ecological fragility of the state, ecological fragility of the geography that you are talking about? So it is not just area. When we talk about geography, it is not just area. When we talk about ecology, it is not just the environment. It is the geographic or ecological fragility that we are talking about. You have continuous floods taking place. You have continuous human-wildlife conflicts taking place. So how do we meet these challenges? We need more resources. As simple as that. So these are some of the issues I thought I would raise, and I'm sure that Professor Kundu will have something to say about it. And sadly, I came to understand that we have hardly 10 minutes left. So over to you, Professor Kundu.
Thank you. I think you have raised.
In fact, I forgot to mention one more point. Can I raise?
Please go ahead.
No, the thing is that, because I was thinking about the point raised by Lekha on this political economy. Yeah, that's the point. We need to bring in the larger political economy, because how come that we found a reduction in, or rather, what is called less than an expected growth in what is called the divisible pool? Because you have already reduced the corporate tax. The corporate tax should have gone to the divisible pool, and as part of that, you would have got a particular share of that. The state would have easily got 41% of that share. But there has come down a sharp decline from 30% to 22%. So the point when you talk about discrimination, and it's also relevant in the context of the point raised by Rekha, I would say that discrimination is not just between the center and the states. It is between the dominant identities in the state. It is between the dominant identities in the larger country. So you are in a position to give more and more benefits to the corporate capital. And in that process, you find that a decline in what is called divisible pool to that extent. And states are denied of what is called their own autonomous process of development trajectories. That's a point. Thanks. Over to you, please.
Raman, I think very, very complex issues have been raised, and I don't know whether I'm able to answer. And in fact, I'm not sure whether Finance Commission can answer, because I remember for the 15th Finance Commission, when the government stipulated certain things that, you should try to reduce freebies, Finance Commission was told that there are certain requirements which you should try to push. There are news that Finance Commission is supposed to be a statutory body independent of political vested interest. And the present government specifying certain conditionalities beforehand to the Finance Commission is an interference in the functioning of the Finance Commission. Finance Commission is supposed to function independent of the political vested interest and supposed to be a body which allocates funds. Unlike NDC, where the political equation of the state, whether it is same as in the central level, all that were playing an important role. The bargaining position of the state depend on the political composition. Finance Commission is supposed to be, I'm not saying it happens, but it's supposed to be independent of that, take certain national level concerns into its functioning, for example, security, safety, border areas, special category states, but it was clearly decided that special category states would not be extended to any other internal state excepting the hilly states. So I certainly share the concern that the divisible pool needs to be increased. That is a consideration which should be pushed forward, because the way the centrally sponsored schemes are coming up without really looking at the priorities of the state. For example, I was talking to a colleague in Kerala. They said Jal Jeevan Mission. If you have central government scheme, maybe Kerala doesn't need that. And the money will go waste. Similarly, if you have a central government scheme where the state's contribution is supposed to be 50% and the state doesn't have the money, it will lose out on that money. So I certainly think my rough calculations tell me that out of 20 lakh crore of divisible funds, 9 lakh crore comes through the divisible pool, and another 2 lakh crore comes through the grants. But whooping 5.5 lakh crore comes from the government, which is outside the, Finance Commission's prerogative. And the central sector schemes, the way it is designed and implemented, the conditionalities are creating factors. Here, one question certainly comes that, do we say that state has every right because it is it is the untied funds, all right. But as far as these central government schemes are concerned, should we say that the conditionalities are not required? In a way, I would support that. But I know for certain states, they are not fulfilling the minimum obligations. For example, Manrega in West Bengal, I'm quite sure about it. Some of the minimum requirements are not being fulfilled. In the case of northeastern states, I know there is a CAG report which says that, look, although we are giving money to northeastern states for certain considerations, they are not following the minimum requirements. I know there is one strong centralization. They want to control the central government schemes, but on the other hand, there is also a question of implementation. You can't simply say that, okay, central government should withdraw and give out of this 5.5 lakh crore, another 2 lakh crore to the Finance Commission. This is something which needs to be debated, that to what extent we can really say, I entirely agree that central government schemes, they are not looking at the priorities. Many of the states are finding it extremely inconvenient to go ahead with that. But at the same time, so there should be no conditionalities. And the Chief Minister from, some of the states are saying that, look, give us the money. So Finance Commission was asked to define what is a freebie. Finance Commission was asked to define that, well, if you are following the new pension scheme, you get the money. All these responsibilities, if you give it to the Finance Commission, they have to have a whole research body. I think there has to be another independent body which can be created, which is recommended by the 14th Finance Commission also. So I think that limited responsibility should be there for the Finance Commission to strictly go by certain objective principles which is nationally accepted and devolve the criteria. And that is why my focus was only on the criteria. And I personally believe two things. One is that population of 2021 should be taken into consideration, because you cannot say that population of 1971 should be taken, and population should come both as an independent 15% criteria. Also, it should come under fertility. But there I entirely agree. 1 upon TFR is there. But what about the aging population? Why can't we have in demographic performance a criteria of percentage of people living above 60 years? That I would certainly think that demographic performance should be measured in terms of the survival rate. But that should be again multiplied by 2021 population. Tax effort, again, there has to be a multiplication by 2021 population. Income distance, again, multiplied by 2021 population. But I personally believe you cannot calculate income distance from the highest income. That is absolutely erroneous. I would like to mention one thing. Lekhaji, believe me, for the last 1 month, I've been experimenting with all the alternative methods. Raman Saab, you said that one has to look at the investigation. I've done at least 50 different calculations. You cannot follow the UNDP method of dividing by maximum minus minimum, because when you're deciding the share of the states, your denominator cancel out. It is not important at all if you divide by maximum minus minimum or not. If you subtract the minimum, then you are actually finding out the level of development. In education, health, for example, in UNDP, they were using the minimum value that they have shifted to some goalpost. But if you subtract the minimum value, you are measuring actually how high it is in terms of in terms of health or education. What you have to do is to subtract the maximum. That is why how deprivation is calculated, and that's what the Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission did. They found out the deprivation in terms of distance from the maximum. I'm simply saying distance from the maximum is not the right way. This distance from the average above is the right way. That is how we should look at income deprivation. And the moment you put that criteria, the deprivation of each state should be calculated on the basis of the average income above that state. You are really calculating the deprivation because the state is suffering because of the ministries being above. And you immediately find that the income's contribution, which is 45%, but certainly the equality becomes much higher. You do find the share of many of the southern states, I specifically looked at it, goes up by 3, 4, 5 percentage points, and many of the less developed states, which is populous, their share goes down. But I certainly insist that the population of 2021 census should be used. As far as the point by Dr. Alok is concerned, I have one submission. I really didn't want to make a presentation of state-local body relationship. I didn't want to talk about State Finance Commission. I didn't talking about financing urban development. I was talking in a limited way on this central-state relationship and the role of the Central Finance Commission. And I entirely agree that not even 1% of the total funds for devolution is left for local bodies. And that is absurd. Out of the yearly amount of 20 lakh crore, not even 1 lakh crore is coming, less than 1 lakh crore is coming for local bodies distributed between rural and urban. And in deciding which state should get how much amount, you don't even consider urban population. This is absurd. You consider the total population and area factor. I think that is something drastically that needs to be changed. Consideration of urban population, how it is distributed, how the large cities, municipal corporations, million plus cities, all those need to be given proper weightages. And then only we can talk about urban governance. I did not talk about private capital coming in, I've been working in this area of urban finance, how they can tap the private capital market. We can talk about all that, but I made a very limited reference to that, saying that the Central Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission, has taken the issue of transferring to urban and local bodies in a very, very casual manner. They have not even considered urban population in different size categories as a basis for allocation. They have taken total population, which certainly puts Kerala and many other states into great disadvantage. But thank you very much. I think this has been very useful discussion, and I would carry out some of these ideas in my mind when I write it out as a formal paper. If there is any other question, I'll be happy to take that. Dr. Raman.
Yeah, to respond or
any participant, because we have not opened it.
Yeah, because we have participants. I'm not sure whether we have so much time left.
Okay.
Ajit, do we have time? Because it's already 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah. So, but quick remarks, I think Lekha and Professor Alok and one or two participants, please.
Just wanted to make
Lekha? Sorry, Professor Alok.
Yeah. Go ahead, Professor.
Yeah. Alok, please. Alok, please.
I think he has switched off.
Professor Alok?
I think Professor Alok is facing some trouble with the network there.
Oh, okay. So, Lekha, please.
No, it has been very enriching, and thank you so much. And thank you, Professor Amitabh Kundu, for that clarification that we are not looking into the normalization procedure, the way the maximum minus minimum. That was a brilliant clarification, and thank you so much for that. Nothing more to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Professor Alok? You're muted.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make only one submission that for the 16 finance commissions, that instead of making ad hoc lump sum grant, that was from the 14th and the 15th commissions, the 16th finance commission can consider the share in the divisible pool, the municipality share in the union divisible pool. This is how you can see all these three tiers together, the union, states, and local. And let's see that the salary component and the operation maintenance cost of the municipalities can be taken care of by the union finance commissions. That's what the point I just wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think some responses from the participants, please. One or two, please. Is there someone who would like to make a comment?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes. Please tell your name.
So this is Ajit.
Yes, Ajit.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for the excellent discussion. I mean, one good thing which I kept on hearing is there are, I mean, in different ways, you all brought the urban into the discussion, which is also one of the purpose we wanted to hear. And the 16th Finance Commission could possibly give more attention to the challenges related to the local governments, particularly urban, which we are currently trying to address. I wanted to leave a question. I don't know whether there's an answer to this at this point of time. But when we talk about urban, the transition into urban society, transition into a society which Dr. Abhiraman mentioned that an elderly society which has a lot of aged people. We are going through a condition where different allocations will need to be made. So on one part, Professor Lekha Chakravarti mentioned that new issues such as climate change could become or are becoming part of their discourses. I want to leave two aspects for if there's time, you could kindly respond. Otherwise I can talk to you later also. But one, to build a resilient society, we will certainly need to kind of go into a planned process, whether it is urban or rural. So having the spatial planning system established, which then helps us to kind of understand what activity can happen, what kind of spatial systems will be relevant, I think is important. We can't make any society resilient unless and until we have right kind of land management practices, particularly when we move into very competitive urban economy. The second thing, for a state like Kerala, we are now experiencing informationalization. When we talk about the need for data, when we talk about the need for having new data to be kind of used for various planning and monitoring and governance purpose, I'm just trying to understand whether there's a provision for us also to think about how do we find resources for an informationalized society such as Kerala. I mean, we got hyperlocal data, we got all kind of information available around us, and it should help improving our governance. So incentivizing digital transition and digital governance, can that also be part of these discourses? Both these are, in my mind, related to a planned, efficient, resilient urban future of Kerala. Just leaving these questions. We'll be grateful if there's some response. Otherwise, we can pick up later also. Thank you.
Professor Kundu, would you like to respond quickly?
No, I think I entirely agree. And this is the point that Dr. Alok was also mentioning, that urban development sector receiving absolutely no importance in the allocation. Think about it. The total local bodies, including rural and urban, gets less than 1% of the total divisible pool. This should be at least 2.5%. That is the minimum that should be given. And allocation across the states of this amount, which should be increased for, as I said, 0.5% or 0.6% to 2.5%, that should be allocated on the basis of some of the, Dr. Alok was mentioning about some management constraints, the difficulties in infrastructure. There can be easily some index being prepared, and allocation across the state should be made not on the basis of population and area. There certainly population has no role. We are talking about urban development. That should be brought in. Amount should go up, and there should be fair, importance being given to the urban development sector. That is certainly a very, very important suggestion which is emerging from the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Professor Kundu. I think it's time for me to invite Professor Joy Elamon to come in. Joy, please.
Okay. Thank you all. And we look forward to meeting you again. Especially, actually, we were also thinking about having a seminar on the RBI report on Panchayat finances. Hope Professor Alok has seen it. And I think we need to actually work on it. That's one. I was about to call it. So second one is also about what the local governments can actually demand to the 16th Finance Commission. So some groundwork has to be done from their side, which we need to facilitate so that they actually present in each state, they present their case before the 16th Finance Commission once it starts functioning. So these are two activities which we plan to do, and definitely we will come back to you. Of course, Dr. Lekha, Dr. Raman, Dr. Alok, and Professor, we will actually come back to you. I think these two things are on the anvil now. Especially we need to work a little more on the 16th Finance Commission and local governments. So this we started as an urban dialogue, but I think that will be beyond the urban and the entire local government situation. Thank you. Thank you, and we will meet soon.
Thank you.
Ravi Raman sir, if it's not already too late, I think we have one question in the Zoom chat box. Can we take that up?
Please carry on.
And it's from Shailajan, Professor Shailajan, who is asking how do we incentivize the better performing states, especially those states who make huge progress on sustainable development goals.
Yeah, let us hear from Professor Kundu. Yeah.
No, I think it's a very important thing, but we have wondered whether Finance Commission is capable of, for example, taking a decision on what is a freebie and how sustainable development has to be brought in. But I personally believe that the states which are doing well in terms of sustainable development, their performance in overall development, I mean, you check this up, that is also not very bad. And the moment you put the income deprivation measurement properly, you immediately will find that the states which are doing relatively well, their share will go up. So you cannot introduce one specific criteria saying those states which are performing well, let us try to give, there will be a political crisis. Instead, we are simply saying that economic deprivation is important, but let us measure economic deprivation in a manner that is acceptable. You can't measure from the highest and the lowest. That is not how you measure income deprivation. That is what is done by the UN system when you are measuring levels of development. Subtract the, some kind of goalpost value. But I personally think that sustainable development, if that has to be separate ground, it's all right. But within the Finance Commission, there has to be a proper way of redefining income deprivation, which is 45% of that. And this modification, I'm not saying the one that I have suggested is the only way, but it certainly caters to this efficiency criteria to a great extent and reduces the inequality. This can be checked, and we can certainly make an initial case. Let it go to the Finance Commission as an alternative criteria of measuring income distance. And sustainability can be within a, assumed to be built into it, or there should be separate funding, as was mentioned, for other things. Separate fund can be created for sustainability. But that's an important consideration for the future years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now I would like to invite Ravi Raman sir again to maybe formally conclude the session.
It's done. Now it is done. Excellent discussions. And Professor Joy has already assured us that he will have 1 or 2 meetings in near future. So looking forward for those meetings, and I'm sure that most of the participants will join for that conversation as well. And yeah, let us wait for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Leha.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.